Safe Choice horse feeds from Nutrina are the leading products in controlled starch. They also include amino acids for better top line support, gastric support for performance horses, and low starch and sugar levels for horses with metabolic concerns. Combined with a taste your horse will love in both pelleted and textured options, you're sure to find a Safe Choice product that's right for your horse. More nutrition, more healthy benefits, and more performance results. Safe Choice horse feeds, only from Nutrina. Visit neutrinoworld.com for more info.
I am.
I am a young.
I'm a young.
I am.
And I am a young
Black.
A young black.
Young.
Black.
A young black
equestrian.
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 Black equestrian.
equestrian.
Black equestrian.
equestrian.
Black equestrian.
I'm a young black equestrian.
I am a young black equestrian.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Young Black Equestrians with your host, Aubriana Johnson. Today, I wanted to talk about some things that can help you as a horse owner going into the wintertime. I know that we have a lot of people who maybe you don't get all 4 seasons like we do here in North Carolina, or maybe you're on the other side of the world and it's about to be summer for you. If so, I apologize. This episode, might not be for you. But for those of you that are getting ready to go into winter, it's fall time right now. It feels amazing outside, but we know that we are needing to use this time to prep for the winter and to make sure that we've got everything that we need before we get any sort of inclement weather, because we know that climate change and all the things that the world likes to throw at us. And I mean, it is 2021. What's left? What is left? What is left to happen to us, y'all? I don't know, but we're gonna be prepared. So this list, I believe we did an episode way back in 2018 on this same kind of subject, but this list is primarily for preparation to, get you and your horses ready for inclement weather, wintertime going into, 2022. Now, when I'm going to share this list on our Instagram and Facebook pages as well, if you don't catch everything, so don't feel the need to write everything down. But I noticed over the last, 2 years that we've been doing this podcast, so many of our YBE fam are getting horses for the first time. They are, purchasing horses that they've leased previously. They are moving with their horses, picking up new, job opportunities, all types of things. And so I just wanted to give a brief rundown of our list of 10 things for horse owners to check for and to make sure they do before we get into the cold, nasty weather that all horse people loathe. So let's go ahead and get into this list. The very first thing is cleaning any type of refrigerator that you have for horse stuff. I know if you have a barn, a lot of times barns will have fridges or mini fridges where they house medications, drinks for, the people that come into the barn, boarders or staff, food, anything like that. We know how nasty barns can get. And I think a lot of things have changed as far as cleanliness when we talk about the pandemic, but sometimes the refrigerator gets forgotten. So the very first thing you can do to prep for wintertime is to clean your barn fridge or clean your outside fridge. That will help, reduce any just stickiness, any dust, take out any old carrots or treats, or even check your medicine. Check the medicine that you have in the fridge and check for expiration dates. Check for anything that you need to throw away, anything that may have spilled, anything that is open that should not have been sitting there open. Go ahead, get that stuff cleaned and thrown away. And then if you need to purchase anything else, like say if you had to throw away medications, you know, like, okay, this is the medicine that I need to purchase for my horse, my donkey, my mule, whatever, uh, with my veterinarian before we get into the wintertime and it's harder to get them out. The second thing that you can do to prepare for wintertime is to check your blankets and your summer sheets, any type of sheets that you have been using throughout the year. The last thing that you want is to need a blanket or need a sheet or decide that you want to start sheeting and you pull them out and they either have been chewed through, because we all know when we keep stuff out in the bars, sometimes mice get in it. They've either been chewed through, molded or mildewed, are not clean, were put away dirty, or have holes in them that we forgot that were there from the previous season. So go ahead and pull out those winter blankets, pull out those summer sheets, and there's always a big debate on whether or not to blanket or whether or not to sheet. There is no right answer. It is all about preference. It's about the horse. It is about what kind of work they are being put under. It is about what you can buy. Don't ever feel pressured to do something simply because somebody else is doing it. But also, if you know that it's something that your horse needs, then by all means, do the thing. Sheet the horse, blanket the horse. It is fine. It is fine. Make sure you're, checking all the buckles for any tears, any buckles that are stuck or rusted or anything like that. Just make sure that you are checking for those things when you're pulling out your blanket so that you will be fully prepared. If you need to purchase something, you can already do it. You know that, going into the holidays, shipping is insane. It usually, triples the duration between actually being shipped and being delivered. So some of those things that you're going to need, quickly, go ahead and know that you need to order those things now, or go ahead and order them now. The third thing that you can do to prepare for winter time is to check your weatherization equipment, or check the weatherization of your equipment. Abriana, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you. Okay, the weatherization means like when you have spigot outside, and any like equipment, any pipes or anything like that, making sure that they're well insulated so that they don't freeze, because the last thing that people want to come into is either into their barn or, go out to the pasture and you try to water the horse and the pipes have either burst or frozen over. That is definitely not something that you want to have happen, or that is a super easy fix. I mean, it really causes a major inconvenience. So weatherizing everything from pipes and spigots outside, there are so many different things you can use, so many different hacks, so many different tricks, knowing what you're going to use to weatherize water troughs. If you have water troughs outside, knowing what you're going to use to weatherize your water hoses. And you don't even have to really weatherize water hoses. It's really just making sure that they're drained out every day. If you get really, below freezing temperatures, making sure that the water hoses are well drained so that they don't freeze overnight. and making sure that everybody in the barn or wherever you board or wherever you keep your horses is on the same page. And they know, like, hey, don't do this because we do not want frozen water hoses. All right. Not only that, you want to make sure you have some sort of protection for your equipment. If you have a barn or if you are using equipment at a barn, tractors, ATVs, gators, mules, things like that, making sure that the actual equipment is, good to go as far as being protected from freezing temperatures. It is a major, major, major time saver and money saver to go ahead and do those kinds of things now, as opposed to when it is already freezing outside, already cold, Yeah, what is it? The antifreeze, some people like, you don't have to use antifreeze. You can just use water in the radiator until the water is still in the radiator when it is freezing outside. Use antifreeze. Go ahead. You can tell I'm from the country. Okay. Go ahead and make sure those things are done now so you don't have to do them later. The next thing that you can do to prepare for winter is to secure your hay. Secure your hay. If you do not feed hay during the summertime, if your horses are out on pasture, that is all well and dandy. I'm all about the pasture life, but we all know that the grass don't want to grow. They don't want to grow in the wintertime. So making sure that you have your supplier and your storage for hay before you get in the wintertime. I swear every winter I go and you're in these Facebook groups and you see like, where can I get alfalfa? Where can I get Timothy Orchard? Where can I get da, da, da? My supplier fell through. The hay didn't come. The hay is frozen in Pennsylvania. Like the hay is stuck. Da, 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 da. I didn't get my delivery on time. Raise your hand right now. Doesn't matter where you are. Raise your hand if you have seen something like that. Yeah. So make sure you know where you're going to get your hay from. Get deliveries early if you can. I know hay storage is difficult in many places. So if you can't store it on your own property, like larger amounts, whether it be round bales or square bales, make sure that you at least know where you're getting it from and, have a relationship with that supplier so that they can at least tell you when they're about to run out, when they're headed to do their next shipment so that you can, have that constant supply because you have a good relationship with them. Make sure that, your wherever your hay is being stored, that it is safe. The veterinarian that took the first chance on me when I wanted to do vaccine clinics at trail rides here in North Carolina, his residence, his barn, he had a barn dominium. His barn and his home burned down last week or earlier this week. And I have no idea, the situation behind it. I have no idea the cause or anything like that. But when we're thinking about hay storage, fire is one of the biggest concerns that a lot of barn owners have. So making sure that wherever your hay is kept is safe, there's no smoking in your barn, it's dried grass, literally can ignite at any time. So make sure that your hay storage is a safe place and that again you have people understanding the importance of not smoking around the hay, not having any bonfires near the hay, all that stuff. The next thing that you can do to prepare for the winter is to check your fencing. Now this is something that obviously should be done before winter time. But if you're, I don't know. I don't know if they get snow in South Carolina, but we get snow in North Carolina. And so a lot of times it doesn't even come in the form of snow. It is ice. We get like ice storms. And so it's important for us to make sure, if we have any overhanging limbs or, any vines, any sort of vegetation that's like over the fencing, that we make sure that we don't, or we make sure that we cut that stuff back. Because when it comes to like ice storms and snow and, it sticks onto those tree limbs and it just hangs them down. And that can really affect your fencing, your fence lines, things falling onto the fence, whether it be wood or some sort of electric wire. It really doesn't even matter. Making sure that you are cutting that stuff back just in preparation of some sort of cold weather happening. I'm definitely gonna have to do that at my house where my horses are, because we have an area where I put up temporary fencing, in the hopes that we would get some more T-posts to make it permanent later on. But later on has happened and we still haven't done it. So I know that that's going to be something that I have to do, because it's at the very back of the pasture. You really can't see it unless the horses have gotten out, or unless you already go down there and you see what's going on. So check the fencing. It's getting darker earlier now, so our daylight time, especially if your pasture's not in a place where it's well lit all the time, our daylight time is getting a lot shorter. So making sure you're able to get out there and see what's going on, see the current state before it gets too dark. That is very, very important. All right, so that was number 5. Number 6, securing feed bags and containers. I've been in so many different, barn environments. It's, feed being in everything from trash bags to barrels. And I mean, not trash bags, trash cans to barrels to, big bins to, like an automatic feeder thing. Like there's just so many freaking options. But what happens when it gets cold? Who comes inside? All the critters, right? All the critters come inside. And so we know that there are going to be more mice in barns and in feeding environments when it gets cold outside. So go ahead and make sure that your feeding situations are secure, because you don't want any mice coming inside and chewing up all your stuff and getting into your trash cans and destroying your food, because it's gross. It's really gross. I'm not telling everybody to get a barn cat, but I'm sure there are cats out there that love mice and would love a home with you in your barn. So go save a life so you don't have mice. That is my PSA to you. And we are going to get into the last 4 after a word from our sponsors.
There's a reason many professional riders are such big fans of Nutrina's ProForce feeds. Winners align themselves with winners, and they know choosing high-quality nutrition is one of the biggest ways to give their horses a leg up in the arena. ProForce is the only feed on the market with rebound technology that helps your horse recover faster so you can keep winning. All ProForce products also include marine source calcite to support gastric health and help maintain a normal stomach pH. Visit neutrinaworld.com for more information. Fuel the win with ProForce.
All right, let's get back to it. Number 7. All right, let's just run down the list real quick. So we talked about cleaning a barn fridge, checking your winter blankets and summer sheets. On that note, Go ahead and get your summer sheets, your fly sheets, all that stuff cleaned, put away. The flies are going away. Get that stuff clean before it costs a lot of money to get them done. Number three was check weatherization equipment for your hoses, your spigots, your water troughs, as well as your equipment. Securing your hay stores, your storage and your supplier, check your fencing, secure feed bags and containers. That was number six. Let's get into number seven, deworming. What have you learned about deworming? I really want to know because there are a lot of conversations about what is right and what is necessary and what we can do to fight um, I am blanking on the word. I think it's anti-helmintic resistance. Anyways, when the point is when we overuse dewormer, the worms start to grow resistant to the medicine. So it is recommended now to be a lot more intentional when you're deworming your horses, and not necessarily just doing it by rotation, like, oh, we use you know, one dewormer in the spring and one in the summer and one in the fall. Like, no. At this point, the recommendation is to check stool samples. Make sure your horse even has worms. Are there worms to deworm against? You know, if you start seeing like botfly eggs on their legs and things like that, then you know specifically what kind of dewormer that you need. But the current recommendation from veterinarians is to do like a fecal egg count, see what dewormer is going to be needed and only use that. That can save you money in the long run. You're not deworming a whole bunch of horses that don't need it. You're not deworming with the wrong dewormer. You're not spending money on this expensive dewormer that people have convinced themselves cures COVID. I don't even know what that's about, but that's on the 2021 COVID bingo board at this point because what, y'all? What? Wild. Um, but it can save you money. It can save you money in the long run. It sounds like a headache. You know, a lot of people, you know, have difficulty, you know, reaching veterinarians or you know, trusting veterinarians. Like I completely get it. So do what is best for you. But current recommendation is to figure out what it is you actually need and only spend money on that if you need it. So deworming for the fall can be super important, especially as we get new horses in. We're about to get into the point they recommend deworming after the first frost so that whatever worms come out can be frozen and die instead of, you know, any worms coming out and reinfecting horses. So consult with your veterinarian, get the best information for your area, get the best information for your horse, and do that. Number eight, the eighth thing that you can do to get yourself ready for the wintertime is to restock medical supplies. I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but you know, fall, like there is nothing better than like a fall trail ride. There is nothing. There are very few things better than a trail ride in fall. You know, this is like prime riding time. The horses aren't super hot and exhausted, although for some people they prefer the horses that way because they're slower and easier to manage. But this is the prime riding time for me. But that being said, if we're going to be more active with our horses or, you know, doing more stuff with them, we need to make sure that we have what we need just in case something bad happens. So restocking medical supplies in your barn or even in your home, first aid kits for people, first aid kits for horses. That includes any medications that they will let you get, Banamine, Bute. Um, I'm not going to just list out medications that veterinarians give to their clients because some people need more than others. But we know that when it gets cold, that there is a higher incidence of colic, right? Colic is the number one killer of horses today. So with the weather changes and, abrupt shifts in temperature, horses are more bound to have these sorts of GI issues, to have ulcers if they are stuck inside more, if their turnout has changed. Any kind of change really will affect a horse's GI system. So we really need to be keeping a lookout for colic type issues, and Banamine is definitely something that you need to have on hand for that, and know how to give it. Know how to give it. We could talk about that some other time, but make sure you know how to give the medications that you have for your horse. But restock your medical supplies because I know, if you used anything during the summer, you probably haven't thought about restocking those reserves and making sure that you have everything you need going into the wintertime. Like I said before, shipping is going to be atrocious again this year. So we just want to make sure that you have everything you need ahead of time before you go into the cold of winter. The next thing, number 9, prepping for cold weather feed changes. So a lot of horses have different diets when they go into the winter time. They are either not in work as much, or in some instances, they're working harder. They're gone from being turned out and working in the outdoors to be installed and working in the indoors. There's no telling how feed can change because of that. A lot of people are cutting hay now and they're getting new hay shipments. So although, your hay can come from the same place, sometimes there's differences. And so preparing for cold weather feed changes, excuse me, again, colic is one of our number one concerns. Ulcers are like a number 2 concern, but you want to make the changes that are appropriate for the horse, and you want to make sure that you acknowledge there might be some effects because of those changes. So I'm curious to know if you guys are changing your horse's diets, if you're upping grain during the wintertime, if you have hard keepers, if you change grain during the wintertime. I was looking, I saw on Facebook there was a barn that was, advertising they had some spaces available, and the pasture option, it had pasture, and then it said that the horses get hay and grain during the wintertime. Like you could pay extra for your horse to get hay and grain during the wintertime. And I just thought that was interesting, because, it's acknowledging like the pasture is not going to be the same during the winter. You're not going to have the same amount of grass. You're going to deal with weight fluctuations. So you're going to have to supplement that, and then choosing what the heck you're going to supplement it with. That's just very important, especially if your horse is not usually getting grain because they are on pasture. So you're going to have to transition them onto that and then deal with the effects of that. Because I know when my horse was a baby, I put him on this one grain, and the barn owner called and was like, I need you to come get him because he's climbing the wall of the stall, and he already jumped out of the pasture and yada, yada, yada. So I had to take him off that grain because he was wild. wild. So prep for cold weather feed changes. The last thing that you can do to prep for wintertime is to create an emergency plan. This emergency plan, needs to be something that you have and that lives where your horse is. I know for us, like us in North Carolina, October, November, kind of into December a little bit, we tend to have like hurricanes in the later part of this year. There were few, but none really touched North Carolina. Um, there have been many times where I either didn't have an emergency plan or I did have a plan. I did have, people around me with a plan. So my horses fell under their plan. And sometimes it didn't end up being the best plan for my horse. I have a horse that has heaves. He's 28. And I remember almost losing him in a hurricane because we moved him to not abandoned, it just wasn't being used currently, a barn that was super dusty. And if you know anything about heaves, it's like COPD for horses. They have trouble breathing. He could not breathe very well in that dusty barn, even though we were trying to prevent him from being outside in this category 4 hurricane. I ended up having to call my vet, and in the middle of a hurricane, giving IV fluid boluses, like 5 liters of IV fluids, and having to turn him out literally while trees were almost horizontal. The wind was so bad, and then he was running around like crazy, so I had to turn my other horse out. And it was just like, wow, after all this and all this money, you guys ended up doing the same thing you would have been doing at home. Great. So making sure you have a plan if you either have hurricanes or if it's really cold, what are you gonna do? If your water spigots freeze, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna get the horses water? Oh, I can't believe I forgot about this, or I didn't mention it specifically, but make sure if you're gonna have a water trough heater, make sure them bad boys work now. Because when you go to buy one this is October, November, December, especially in my area, they're gonna be gone because people are realizing, oh shoot, my water trough heater from last year doesn't work. So let me buy a new one. And that's not something that a lot of, tractor supplies and feed stores just keep year round because a lot of times they don't need it, right? So make sure that you have your water trough heaters and stuff, whether it needs a new cage, whether you need to get an all new one, whether, the electricity. A lot of times some horses don't like the electricity, I guess, whatever, the thermal things in the water. So they decide they don't want to drink it. These are the things you need to know before you end up in some sort of frozen weather emergency. Just making sure that these things actually work. Some of the buckets that you can plug in, it's like a regular, was that like 5-10 gallon buckets? I can't remember, but they're heated buckets that you plug in. So it's so easy to pull those cords out the back, and then all of a sudden the thing doesn't work. Like, you definitely need to make sure you have all those things now. And, make sure you have enough for the herd you have, just checking the supplies and just running down the list and making sure you have everything. Making sure you have updated contact information for horse owners. If you're in a situation where you're around other horses that are owned by other people, making sure you have your updated contact information on file with your veterinarian. All of these are a part of making sure this emergency plan, in the event of inclement weather, works best for you. If you are in a situation where you can't come out to the barn, say you're in a self-care environment, having explicit instructions like, this is what I do for my horse, like, so and so, you're already there. I will pay you cash monies, but this is what I need you to do. Because I know sometimes in the past I had been unable to get to my horses if they're in a boarding, if he was boarding, and I had to call on somebody else to feed them and take care of them. So that is the last thing that you can do to get ready for winter time. I am interested to know what else might be on your list for preparation for the winter. I think that there can be so much more added to this list, but these are the basics. These are some of the key things to look out for, whether you're in a boarding environment or you have your horses on your own, on your own property. Asking your barn owner, like, hey, what do we have in place? Like, is there anything I can help with? Is there anything that you need? These are some of the things I'm looking out for. It is okay to have these kinds of conversations, especially if you are in a place like me that the weather is there's no guarantee that it's going to be great. There's no guarantee that it's going to be bad, but being prepared is the name of the game when it comes to having horses and dealing with a place that has all four seasons. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Head over to socials and let me know what kind of things that you have, what kind of things you're preparing for the winter time. And if any of these really resonated with you, or if you have a story where one of these things was like, yes, this is definitely something I need, because let us know. Young Black Equestrians on Instagram and Facebook. All right, I will see you guys in next week's episode. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Young Black Equestrians. Head over to our Facebook or Instagram pages and let us know what you thought about that episode. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and have the opportunity to be featured in our next